Good day, everyone. Apologies for the delay. My name is Ruramiso Mashumba. I am the Africa lead along with Patience Kuku for the Global Pharma Network. A warm welcome to everyone for joining our webinar on water efficiency part 2. So before we begin, I would like to tell you a little bit about the Global Pharma Network for those who are joining our webinars for the very first time. So the Global Pharma Network was established in the year 2000 by farmers, and our focus is to connect, empower, and mobilize farmers worldwide. Our membership is formed by 260 individual farmers. These are both male and female farmer leaders from 65 countries with farms of all types and sizes. Our mission is to amplify the voices of farmers in promoting trade, technology, sustainable farming, and economic growth, as well as food security. We believe in the power of knowledge transfer, which is why we created these webinar series to offer multiple approaches that focus on action, collaboration, and results that showcase agriculture as part of the solution to the main challenges facing humanity. We invite you to connect with us and follow us on our social media channels. Today's speakers are from the Global Pharma Network, and I would like to introduce you to our first guest. Her name is Gabrielle Cruz. She is an agronomist engineer from the University of Lisbon, Portugal, and has an MSc in farm management from Way College, University of London. She has been managing her family farm for the last 33 years, along with one of her sisters since 2014. The farm has been in the family for more than 110 years. She and her sisters are the fifth generation of farmers. They are into sustainable practices such as conservation agriculture, integrated pest management, efficient water use, were early adapted to grow wheat. So welcome, Gabrielle, to this conversation. I'm very excited to learn more about what you're doing. Imagine being farming for the past 33 years. I've only been farming for 10 years and still learning a lot. So there's a lot of wealth of knowledge that we're going to learn from you. And also, I really love just finding out that this is a family farm and it's been in the family for 110 years. So encouragement to farmers there that don't give up. This is a generational job. So welcome, Gabrielle.
Thank you, Ramiso. And I would like to thank the GFN for inviting me. I will tell them, the listeners, the experience I've been having with the use of water. In Europe and in our country, we are asked to be very efficient. So I will share my experience of what we did on the farm to be more efficient using this scarce resource. So let me share now. So water, I'll tell you a little bit about water and irrigation in Portugal. The importance of irrigation is unequivocal for our country. We are asked to produce in quantity, with quality, efficiently, centered on food safety, and with account of the needs of the consumer. In the Mediterranean climate, the irregularity and unpredictability of rainfall necessarily requires watering to guarantee the success of agricultural production. Okay, now. Irrigated areas in my country currently represent only 14% of the national utilized area. 46% of the farms have some plots which are irrigated, and this 14% of the UAA and these 46% of farms, they are responsible for 60% of the agricultural production. Water irrigation has a significant positive impact on the territorial cohesion and socioeconomic development of the territories. It contributes for job creation and settlement of people in rural areas all over the world and in my country. In Portugal, the surface inflows in average in 1 year per year in mainland Portugal are 7 times the volume of water used by all sectors of the economy, which means that we have a lot of water from the surface inflows, which we don't use yet. The total useful capacity of the reservoirs on mainland Portugal can only retain 31% of the total inflow, which means that if we were given the opportunity to use more water, the 70 remaining ones, it would be excellent because we could increase the food safety in Portugal. And why is that? It's because 1 hectare of irrigated land produces 5 to 6 times more than 1 hectare of rain-fed land. So if I tell you a little bit about the climate in my region, you can imagine that it's typical of Mediterranean climate. You have an irregularity which is enormous. In the up, you can have in your left is dry and your right is wet. On your left, you have the blue one is cold and the brown is warm. So you can have this irregularity of the climate, and which means that we have a lot of dry years and which are hot too, and it has the consequence that irrigation is very important for us. So to describe a little bit the temperature and the rainfall in my area, it rains in average 100 millimeters per year, and the rain is concentrated in fall and winter, and we have very, very dry summers. It's very easy here that we have 40 to 42 to 40, even 45 degrees temperature in July, with moisture of 10%, which is about the same of a desert. So you can understand why irrigation is so important for us in my region. So just to give you a little idea where I'm located, so Portugal is this tiny country on the left of Spain, and where you have the arrow is where I am located, so on the border with Spain. That's why I can communicate with Spanish speaking, because I learned Spain as a child. So I'll tell you a little bit of my story. I'm an agronomist, as Ramizo said. I'm the third of 4 sisters. We are the 4th generations of farmers. We are in no-till since 26 years ago. We've been in integrated pest management for 21 years. We've been seeking for the efficient use of water for the last 26 years, and the farm is market-oriented, which means that we produce what we are asked to produce by our producer organization. The main crops are winter cereals, wheat, barley, oats. We were asked and are still asked to produce low gluten content cereals like spelt wheat. We produce corn and peas, clover and other legumes for seed. Some years we were asked to produce rapeseed for biodiesel, and we have rain-fed pastures for beef cattle. We moved in from flooding irrigation when I arrived at on the farm to work with my father. We moved from flooding irrigation to center pivot irrigation in 1991. Here you can see in one of the plots of our farm, you can see how we reuse the water we received from a public dam. So the water we receive is 100% from a public dam. But we are at the end of the canal, dam, and we can reuse the water that it's not used by the public dam, which means this green line you have here is the end of the channel of the public dam. The water in the green line used to go to a river. What we do, we did the deviation, which is the blue line. We did a deviation so we can use this water that is not used by the public dam and use it for irrigation on our farm. On the blue piglets you have here, we have a drainage system, because the soil is very heavy and the pivots could not move. So the water that goes from come out from this drainage system goes into the green line, into the blue line. So the water that of the irrigations is again reused by us on a reservoir, which is here in the middle of the plot, or by our neighbor who is south of our farm. So one thing that we started many years ago was with no-till. I first contacted with no-till in one trip that I made to the United States. We tend to have permanent soil cover crops, and we tend to practice as we can a crop rotation according to what crops are profitable for us. So these are the three pillars of conservation agriculture. And we've noticed that we've increased organic matter of our farm. We increased water infiltration. We can decrease on water evaporation, which means that we could increase on water use efficiency. So we tend to be more efficient using our irrigation water. Here you can see this machine is sowing in a lot of biomass. He's sowing peas in a lot of biomass. And in your right-hand side, you can see a picture of the peas already out in this plot sown by this machine, this sowing machine. One thing that we introduce is on the picture on your left, you have a probe. In this probe, registers is introduced on your soil and registers the soil moisture or the soil content of the water soil content every minute, and sends the information to a company who sends us a report that you can see in the middle picture. And you know how is the water on your soil at different depth, and according to the weather forecasts and the water content on the soil, you make your decision on how much, how long, and which days to irrigate the crops. In the picture in your right-hand side, you have a satellite picture where we can see the development of the crop, and we can see that in some areas the crop is having some trouble. Some areas the crop is greener, in other places the crop is yellowish. So you tend to go to those places and understand what's happening, and many of the times it's the pivot that needs to be better regulated in order to irrigate in a more efficient and in a more regular and a more homogeneous way your crop. So you tend to use all these tools to make the decisions on how much to irrigate, when, and for how long. What we have been able to do in our farms with the no-till conservation agriculture, integrated pest management, and this use of this efficient use of water, we were able to reduce on our farm water consumption by 15 to 20%. And one thing that is very important and has been very important for the last years was the reduction of energy consumption. Energy after the pandemic was extremely expensive. And with all this integration of several tools, we were able to reduce the consumption of energy from 11 to 17%. So Leonardo da Vinci used to say, and I'm totally in favor of this proverb, and he used to say, water is the driving force of all nature. Thank you very much for your attention, and I will be grateful for any question. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriela. I'll see you in a few minutes for questions. Please remember to our audience to post your questions in the comments, whether you're watching live on StreamYard on our social media channels. I'm going to share our next presenter's recording. Unfortunately, she couldn't join us live, but she was so kind to share her recording with us. So here we go. Our next speaker is Jenny Holterman. She's a fourth-generation California farmer. She grew up in Chico, California, in farms with her family, almonds and walnuts. She graduated in agribusiness, marketing, and fruit science. She's the executive director for the Water Association of Kern County. And with her husband, they farm almonds with his family at the Wasco and Shafter area. Jenny and Tim have 2 small kids and live at the homestead in Shafter, California. She direct markets her almonds under her brand, Almond Girl Jenny, and is a social media advocate. You should follow her. Jenny is an active advocate for agriculture as well. She currently serves as president of the Kern County Farm Bureau and a board member of the California Farm Bureau Board of Directors. She is the past chair of California Young Farmers and Ranchers and is a graduate of the American Farm Bureau Partners in Advocacy Leadership Class number 10. She also serves on the Global Communications Committee for the Almond Board of California. It's a pleasure to have you here, Jenny. Welcome.
Thank you. I am excited to be with you guys all virtually today. Sorry I couldn't be there in real life. But I'm going to share with you a little today about California and our water situation and about almond farming. So first off, I wanted to provide a little overview of me. I know Gina did a great introduction, but I am a 4th-generation California farmer. My family goes back more generations before that, but we came to California in the early 1900s to farm, and I grew up farming almonds and walnuts with my family. I raised animals through our different projects, 4-H and FFA in America that we have, and then I married a fellow 4th-generation California farmer, and we farm almonds and walnuts and our almonds, and we are raising the 5th generation on our family farm. Through farming, I am involved in various different advocacy programs and trying to promote agriculture in California and across the United States. So a little background to really understand California and our water. I wanted to provide a little overview about United States agriculture. California is the top producing agriculture state in the United States, and if it was its own country, it would be the 5th largest agriculture producing country in the world. So we grow about $55.9 billion of agriculture revenue in the state of California. And Iowa would have to double their production more so to meet our agriculture production. So we're quite proud of that. What does that mean in California? Well, we have about 24.3 million acres of farmland in California, 9.6 million which is irrigated. So that is a lot of water demand agriculturally wise and what we grow. With that water, we use about 35 million acre feet of water. I know our equivalents in America are a little different than the rest of the world, But an acre feet is our common terminology for irrigation and for water. An acre foot is the equivalent of if you put 1 foot of water on a football field, is our common terminology in the United States. If you flood a football field with 1 foot of water, that's how much an acre is. So that is how much it is in California and how much we irrigate here. But it takes water to make all of these crops so abundant in California. We do have a lot of different water politics in California. We have a lot of environmental pressures and environmental regulations. So if you look at California water use, the environment technically uses about 80% of the water used in California. So that is to monitor fish and streams and rivers and flows, and to keep areas of high salinity lower. We have to release water through the ocean and through streams to monitor those environmental situations. So of that water, agriculture only receives about 15% of the captured water that we're able to utilize in the state, and our urban population uses a little less than 5% of the water. We do have a lot of laws and regulations again in the United States that want to make sure that our water is of certain drinking water standards. And so the environmental releases of water help monitor that situation. It's also very controversial and political discussion in California. But in Kern County, where I live and farm, we are one of the top agriculture producing counties, if not the top in the United States. So our county has about 2 million acres, and a little less than that of irrigated acres in the valley, where we call our valley is where we farm. So, and I grow almonds, and almonds are the highest amount of acres that we grow. So it's the 4th largest crop if you look at value, but in acres wise, we farm about 220,000 acres as a contiguous in our county of almonds. So that's not my farm specifically, that's all the farms in our county. And we grow more almonds in our county than anywhere else in California. Because we have a unique Mediterranean climate, we're able to grow those commodities here. So our Mediterranean climate in California deems us one of the only 5 places in the world that can grow almonds. Almonds have to have a cool, dry winter and a hot, humid summer. And we grow 80% of the world's supply of almonds right here in California because of that climate in our soil. But they have been deemed that people think they use a lot of water. We have committed to using less water. So since the 1990s, almond farmers have used about 33% less water in 2000 than we did in 1990s. And they've committed as an industry to use 20% less by 2025. And we also have increased our production per acre. So we use 33% less water, but we've also increased our acres by being our yield per acre by being more proficient with our water uses. So we used to flood irrigate a large majority of irrigated lands in our almond orchards throughout the state. We've since switched to drip irrigation, which are those black hoses that run throughout on the tree rows. So it is targeted irrigation, where we now can say where exactly we want that water to go, and it's not being wasted watering the centers of our orchard or various other places to encourage weeds or other growth. We are targeting our irrigation and using less water and growing more almonds. So what used to be about 2,000 pounds per acre as an average, we now are growing 3,000 pounds per acre. So we are using less water, and we're actually being more efficient in growing a higher yield crop. So how much water do our almonds actually use? We use the same amount as any other tree, like a nut or a stone fruit tree. So if you look at other commodities that grow on trees, We grow, using almonds, we use about 36 inches of water per acre per year across the life of an almond. So an almond tree lives in the ground for about 25 to 30 years before its production declines significantly and we have to rip it out and replant it. So over the course of that life, we use about 36 inches per acre per year of water. But that is about the same that you see if you farm pistachios or walnuts or stone fruit or citrus. They all use about that same amount of water. What's different about almonds is that almonds are considered a zero waste commodity. So they have multiple different components. You can see in the picture on the screen, there's a hull and a shell in which almonds are grown, and all of that is utilized within our country for animal bedding or for animal feed, and nothing is wasted in an almond. So we consider that a zero waste crop. So I wanted to touch on our regulatory climate that we have in California. We have multiple different agencies that we have to report to for regulations. I named just a few here on the screen, but we have Air Board, Water Board, Energy Boards, Food and Agriculture. We have not just a water board, but a Department of Water Resources, a State Water Control Board, lots of different agencies in which we have to pay a fee to farm. And many times it's a fee per acre or a fee per APN or block of production that we have. The regulatory cost of just farming has increased about almost 800% in the last 10 years. You can see here a little breakdown about all the different requirements and fees and regulations that we have to pay. And this was a study of a Salinas Valley grower, but basically our fees are more or less the same throughout the state based on what we have to pay just to farm. So these aren't considered, none of this is considered our production costs or input costs. These are just fees we have to pay to a government agency just to put something in the ground and farm it. So our regulations are significantly higher and increasing throughout the years as well. But a large government program was passed in 2014 that is really increasing the burden on our irrigations that we're able to farm. So the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, passed in 2014, is a law that now requires every county or basin where the water is to now develop a plan to ensure that we don't have overdrafts or water quality issues or subsidence because we are over pumping and causing the ground to sink. There are a number of different side effects that the state was seeing from not just farming, but by drilling wells and by people using groundwater supply. So with that, we have a new law set in place, and we had to create plans. Now, our county that we live in has already had 3 failed plans because it doesn't meet what the state standards are. And we're not an outlier. There are many other counties that are going through the same problem as ours to meet the state standards because they have this new regulatory oversight of water in California. So when this plan is fully intact, by 2040, we will have about 1 million acres of farmland out of production in California and about 42,000 agriculturally associated jobs, as well as 65,000 valley jobs, as well as a loss of $7 billion a year to our state. This is just to control the water supply in our state, and it will put many different agriculture companies out of business. But as I stated before, there are multiple different advances in irrigation that farmers have been doing throughout the years to help us not only use less water, but to help us to grow more on less of a footprint. So we have had less acres that we are farming today, but we are farming them more efficiently because of our water usage and because of our regulatory cost to farming. At the end of the day, we are trying to grow as much food as we can in California as we monitor our regulatory and burdensome environment that we farm in.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Jenny. What you said really resonated with me because I'm a dairy farmer, and water usage is also something that people are concerned about with dairy and other livestock farming operations. The point we have to make is that farmers are really thriving in efficiency and working hard to be more efficient, and what we have done to be not only more conscious but to have better resources. We have more knowledge, and with that, what would you tell your fellow farmers all over the world on how to manage water efficiently? How can they start like from zero? What would be the first advice you'd give them?
I think my first advice to anybody on water is to make sure that you have the most local control of your water supply as possible. We are in an area that it's a common joke if the government says, "I'm from the government, I'm here to help you," that's commonly not a good sign. You, as much as you can have local control and local governance of your water, that you're going to be in the best case you can. Anytime that the government tries to come in and control your water or control who is now able to get water, that's going to be a very poor situation. So I would advise against any recommendation of having government control of your inputs and your water supply, and making it that as farmers are able to control that, and it's your private property. And I'm a firm believer in private property rights, and you get to do what you want on your property and not allowing agencies to control that for you.
Right. And to follow up with that comment, you're a recently new member of the GFN. You joined in September 2023. And our mission in the GFN, as you well know now, is to amplify the farmer's voice. And not only you're doing it now, but you have done it before. And this will be my last question for you. What advice would you share with our fellow farmers that are watching, everyone out there, on how your voice is important and matters in this conversation, especially when regulations are becoming so tough on farmers?
I think a big component of that is building relationships with those key influential people. You know, if you can have a relationship with, you know, any of those electeds or any of those different agencies, that's going to help you more than anything else. And it's not just, you know, we get told to tell our story or to share your message, but even before that, it's building those relationships so that when you have an ask or when you have, you know, need help, you already have those established relationships in those different agencies to help you get along. Because you don't want to be, "Hey, I have a problem. I've never met you before. Can you come help me?" You want to have those established relationships already. So it's not like you are now begging somebody to help you, but you're going to a friend, and you know that that friend understands your issues and understands the problems. When I go into any new third party or agency or government office, the first thing I do is try and just, you know, find something relatable and tell them about things that are happening on our farm. I don't go in and say, "Hey, I want this policy change," or "Hey, I don't like this bill that you're working on." That's not going to get you anywhere. The first thing you need to do is just develop those relationships and build trust in those people first.
I love that. That's great advice. Thank you so much, Jenny. I hope to have you here in the studio in future webinars. But for now, this is goodbye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thank you to Jenny for a wonderful presentation. And Gabriela, this was a really, really interesting presentation that you also gave us. And I think it's really good to see that we are probably about, both of you are fourth generation, I think, farmers. And that shows also that, you know, there's a lot of continuity in agriculture, which is really important. But one of the things that I think I would like maybe to kickstart the questions with is that In Portugal, 14% of the land is irrigated. In the US, it's 40%. But one thing that resonates from both your presentations is that there are more and more restrictions on how much water you can use. And so it's not just, like go out and use all the water, even if the yields will go up. What would you say is what makes the farmer make the choices, right? Is it the restrictions? Is it the choice that they just don't want to use irrigation? Is it the cost of irrigation? What would you say would be the most, what makes the decisions happen for farmers more or less in terms of irrigation? What would be your thoughts on that?
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
You can. Okay. There are two main reasons for start. One is the farmers in Portugal tend to be quite old. I mean, they tend to be old. We don't have a lot of young farmers coming into farming. So the average is about 65, 66 years of the farmers, how the farmers age. And the other thing is that Portugal is divided by a river in two. The south is the big farm and the north is the small farm. So the land is very divided in the north and is very concentrated in the south because the climate is poor, the soil is poor, whereas in the north the climate tends to be better and the soil better. So the farms are very small size. So the age and the size of the farm. The other thing is Europe has not been very friendly with countries that need to irrigate because there's a lot of misinformation to the civil society saying that farmers spend 17% of the water. And we tend to make them, to aware them that we don't spend water, we don't waste water, we use water to produce food for Europe. There's another thing that you mentioned is that the regulations are getting more tight. And once you irrigate, you're not very well seen. So what the farmers pressured in the south of Europe, our governments, was that they should give us incentives to the efficient use of water. And then we were able that a lot of farmers, those who have irrigation, use water more efficiently, and we are starting to change people's minds. And there's another factor too, which are the ecologists, people from the environment. They are completely against dams, completely against irrigation, and they are slowing the pace of the country doing more dams and having more land irrigated. And we are trying to aware people about that. And one thing that might have changed the mindset was all these protests of farmers in Europe and in Portugal too, of course, in Spain, Italy, where we said that if we don't have our water to irrigate, our food safety might be compromised.
Excellent. We have a question from Ravi, and he asked the question: if you use micro irrigation, I do know you spoke that you used to use canals, and now you use center pivots. And Jenny uses micro irrigation, so she does drip, right? And a lot of I've used both, and I believe center pivots are the easiest things ever to use. However, we do know that when you're talking about water use efficiency, drip is usually more popular. Is there a particular reason you're not using drips? Of course, it's easier for Jenny with her trees to use drip. But is there any reason you don't use, or do you use drips or any form of micro irrigation?
The main reason is, as you mentioned, that center pivots are much easier to use, much more flexible. But then you don't, sometimes you cannot have the whole plot irrigated because it's a circle or it's a semicircle. If we had deep irrigation, we were probably able to irrigate more surface. The thing is that two things. One is we have an enormous lack of manpower, so we have a lot of trouble to put the drip irrigation in very big plots. I didn't say the surface of our farm, but our farm, the irrigated part is around 380 hectares. I don't know how to convert in acres, but I suppose it will be 700 acres. So it's a lot of surface, and to put the drip irrigation at that surface is less convenient than having center pivot. The other reason is that we have a lot of requirements on what to do with the tubes, the deep irrigation, the plastics. We have to concentrate them and take them to places where they can be recycled. And we don't have manpower to do that. We have an enormous lack of finding people to work on our farms.
Oh, great. Absolutely. And I like that you talk about no-till, right? Because, historically, 26 years of no-till, your ground is storing a lot of water, which means that you are conserving even the amount of water that you put. And then also the technology that you are bringing to it with the probes and being able to read how much water. What would you say is the synergy, right, between no-till farming or, regenerative agriculture and irrigation? How would you recommend that, to farmers in terms of sustainability and all the conversations that we have about, water use efficiency?
Well, we started, I saw first in the United States, what I saw was strip till. And I thought maybe it could be convenient for us in our farm. I arrived in Portugal and I told my father, I saw this technology, and he said, oh, this is exactly what we need. Go, and tomorrow you go and you buy the equipment from the company. And I was a bit scared because I didn't know. I was used to chisel, to disc, to make all these practices. And I was a bit afraid, and my father had a lot of experience. He was more comfortable. So I asked him, can I wait 1 year to study how to use the technology in our farm? And then in 1 year, we will buy the equipment. So he said, okay. And I studied a lot about the technology, strip till, no-till. There was a university here that 100 kilometers from our farm who was starting with studying these practices. So I asked them for some information. And I immediately got in some crops in no-till, and for example, in sunflower and corn, I continued with strip till, and now only in sunflower we're doing strip till, in the rest we're doing no-till. What I noticed was that the increase in our organic matter was faster than I thought, despite the climate is terrible, especially in summer, very hot summers, very dry. And I realized that I could go through the fields as the years were passing, go through the fields better, that I could do things faster, with more opportunity and the best timing. And I noticed an enormous difference on the water consumption. I wish we could have had more and higher decrease on water consumption, but the summers here can be very hot and there's no wind, but it's very hot, you have to irrigate a lot, or they cooler, but there's a lot of wind, you have to irrigate more. So I wish I could have reduced as Jenny about 33%, but not yet. Maybe one day I will. But you can immediately, as the time goes by, you can immediately see that the soil stacks more water, and by the probes you can see the difference on the evaporation and in the evapotranspiration. So what I tell farmers is that talk with other farmers, talk with advisors, talk with extensionists, talk with researchers, and go to conservation agriculture the quickest you can, because you have a lot of benefits with that. And then slowly adopt other technologies like probes, satellite images, interpretation, or that graphics that the company provides to understand how the soil moisture is, but to contact and ask and talk a lot with other farmers who already practice those technologies.
Thank you. Ruramiso, you want to jump in here? So she's doing both no-till and center pivots. And yes, so you want to take over from here on the questions?
Yes, thank you very much. I was very interested in your conversation with us as farmers. This year, I recently put in a moisture probe, and I'm still trying to figure out how to all the information we're getting and how to actually use it well. So, what sort of advice would you give me? Like, this is my first season. I've just put in a moisture probe. And are there any advices that I just take this opportunity to ask another farmer in Europe on what sort of advice would you give to or me who has first time putting in a moisture probe, as well as other farmers here who are listening who might also wonder, what is this moisture probe? Is it necessary? You know, farmers sometimes they don't necessarily get this technology. All they do is they just look at whether how much has it rained, has it not rained, and just irrigate without actually knowing how much moisture is in the soil.
For me, so I was quite lucky, because when I started thinking about how to use more efficiently water, there was an organization 150 kilometers from here who was trying to develop in Portugal the advising system to farmers on using water more efficiently. So they asked me if I was wanting to work with them and help them to work on that subject. So they came with their probes and all the equipment, and at that time they didn't receive already the information by GS, by mobile or internet, and I had to provide them all the information every day. So I used to provide them, and then according to the weather forecast, they would tell me, well, please, so irrigate 20 millimeters this week, 40 millimeters this week, or 60 millimeters this week. And then progressively, when this entity knew how exactly to work with the farmers, they now provide a service to us, and you pay that for that service. So at the beginning, I was lucky because I didn't pay. I helped them to see how they had to work, all our needs, or our problems, all our barriers, and they were able to develop an advising system. So what would I do is, if you don't have this service or a company who provides a service to you, try to convince a school or a university next to you to work with the farmers on the subject, because they will profit from the information and the experience, and you will profit for their information and know how to irrigate. I would tell you not to do it alone. Do it with somebody who is interested on the subject, to work on the subject, and a university, or producers organization, another company, whatever. But don't do it alone. You will spend a lot of time and not knowing how to profit the most of the information.
Great.
Thank you for that.
I don't know if I answered the question.
Thank you for that, Gabriela. That's very interesting. As the company that provides the Center Pivot also provide this, the probe as well as the support that we're getting every day. They send us information. So I appreciate that. And I hope also to be able to then connect with other people who are using similar technologies. I really like your advice. And then just a follow on. So do you also use weather station, some of the rain gauges that are digital rain gauges as well to complement the probe, or it's just the probe?
We have in one of our plots, we have a station from the company which provides us the service, and they asked us to have the station on our farm. I was lucky, but it could be in another farm. So they have a station here, and there's another company who has a station some kilometers from here. So they tend to have stations, to provide the most accurate information to the farmer. And you asked me something else, I think, which I don't remember.
The digital rain gauge, because I remember when I was buying my probe, there was also the, you can get the probe, you can get it with the station, and you can also get a digital rain gauge, which feeds information. Instead of the physical rain gauges, I don't know what sort of rain gauges you use in Portugal, where you measure water from the pivot manually, you can actually get a digital rain gauge that sends information of how much it rained. And so I was just wondering if you...
The probe tells you,
Okay.
tells you information how much it rained or you irrigated, and then you have the weather station that gives you that information too. And it can be very almost simultaneously. You can have the information. I can go and to see 1 hour after raining how much it rained, or how much the pivot irrigated. One thing that is very important is that at least every 2 years, you make the evaluation of your center pivot to see whether it's irrigating properly or not. You know, the ideal would be every single year, but it's costly. So at least 2 years. We have a company who comes every 2 years and evaluates how homogeneously your pivot is irrigating, or what you have to change in order to make your irrigation work better, you know. So that I advise you too that according to this evaluation, to see whether you have to change the sprayers. Sometimes you have to change the sprayers every 3 to 4 years. It depends on how dirty the water is, the irrigation water is, but the accuracy of the pivot is very important. You can lose a lot of money if your center pivot is not irrigating correctly. And you see that on the satellite image.
Yeah, Gabriela, I think it's really, really interesting that you are also considering the future, really, because technology is the future. Jenny said something profound, and she said 1 million hectares will go out of use from irrigation, you know, because of course restrictions and so on. And so that's a lot of land. It's a lot of money. And looking at Europe, and America and all of the restrictions on water. In Africa, we are not quite there yet because we are not even irrigating as much. And so for us, really, for a lot of our listeners who are from Africa, it's really a question of needing to irrigate more. So these conversations are really good because it shows us the different types of irrigation that exist. So you have shown us canals, you've shown us center pivots, we've seen drip, but we also need to then have at the back of our minds that we have to be good custodians of the water, so that in the end, as we are trying to ramp up our production and increase our irrigated lands, we also are making sure that we use water efficiently. So it's been a very, very robust conversation that we've had. But I want you to maybe share your final thoughts on, what you think irrigation is now, what could be the future, and also bring in a sustainability angle to it, of how you think we can be the best custodians of, the greatest resource, water, that we have.
Well, I think that the first thing is that, as we say in Portugal, if farmers don't plant, consumers don't eat. So the first thing is that farmers should be, and I know Europe is terrible for that. I don't know how Africa is, but farmers are not very well seen in Europe. We are always badly seen, like people forget that we produce what they eat, and they have the shelves of the supermarkets full because there are farmers in Europe. So they're always criticizing whether we use too much water, or we use too much agrochemicals, or we pollute the rivers, or whatever. And it's so difficult to communicate with civil society in Europe because there's a lot of misinformation. So the first thing I think is communication. So if you have consumers that are not misinformed, it's the first thing, in my opinion, you have to do, because you already do the good thing of producing food. You only have to adopt new technologies that will make your production more sustainable. And there's a lot of, it's costly, it can be costly. Planter for no-till can be costly. These probes are costly. Center pivot is costly. But we farmers are on the path to do what is right to do in order to be more sustainable. What we have to change is the way the civil society sees us, because we can doing everything very well. If the society don't understand that, it's terrible. So I would say to farmers that communicate, be very careful to what we say to civil society, the words you use, the expressions we use, because you might be misinformed, and get the most information you can to be more and more sustainable.
Thank you.
I don't know if this applies. I don't know if this applies to the United States, maybe more than some years ago, and to Africa, but Europe communication is very important.
Absolutely, world over.
Thank you very much, Gabriela. We had such a rich conversation with you, farmer to farmer, us talking to farmers from all over the world. I saw some farmers commenting that they're from Japan, farmers from Nigeria, as always, farmers from various parts of Africa. We're really, really thankful for having you on this webinar. And again, to all our viewers, thank you very much, as well as my co-host, Patience Kuku, who we both of us lead Africa for the Global Farmer Network, and everyone in the who has been supporting us. Thank you very much for listening to us, and stay tuned. Keep following our social media handles. We have another webinar that's coming up, so it'll be on the 18th of April. So keep that in mind, and we'll be sharing more details and more flyers on the next upcoming webinar. But again, it's always about agriculture, and this time we'll be talking about livestock as well for our livestock farmers. So to everyone, have a good day or a good evening. And for those who joined us midnight, early, now it's morning, so good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And have a nice Easter.
Happy Easter, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Happy Easter.